As dawn breaks over the formidable silhouette of a medieval castle, the air is thick with more than just the morning mist. This is an era when stone was more precious than gold. Each fortress, a living testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Beneath its towering walls, the castle teems like a small city, its people, an army of craftsmen, cooks, and soldiers. Cannons of laughter echoing through narrow corridors, the clatter of swords from the training yard, the pungent smell of horses in the damp breeze, all hint at the rhythm of life designed for survival. Here, every stone has a story, every shadow hides a secret, and every sound could mean life or death. Join us as we unravel the enigmatic art of defending a castle, where walls were weapons and every battle was fought as much with wit as with armor. Picture the medieval castle, a fortress of stone and spirit, where every block was a heartbeat, every corridor a vein running with the lifeblood of its inhabitants. The walls reverberated with the clang of the blacksmith's hammer and the soft rustles of courtly intrigue. Soldiers, servants, and nobles lived within this thriving ecosystem, a testament to the medieval genius for survival and dominion. These castles were seats of power, their towers piercing the sky, symbolizing both prestige and protection, where lords ruled lands and vassals pledged their fealty. Within the castle's confines, wells were dug with singular focus, ensuring the flow of life-giving water during months-long sieges. Ingeniously connected to hidden systems that collected rain from the rooftops, these wells became lifelines when external supplies were severed. Sometimes fortresses perched atop natural springs, intertwining their foundations with the earth itself. This masterstroke not only ensured easy access to water, but also thwarted enemy attempts to poison or disrupt the supply. The gleam of water in the depths signaled resilience, a taunt to besiegers that spoke of endurance and confidence. The heart of the castle beat strongest in the kitchens, where the roar of large hearths reverberated day and night. The air was rich with the smells of roasting meats and baking bread, uplifting spirits in these solemn times. These kitchens were workshops of necessity, where preserving meat and grains through salting regulated the pace of life. Granaries safeguarded against spoilage and theft, each grain of wheat a promise of survival. Every meal, from the Lord's feast to the foot soldier's pottage, was crafted with foresight, aware that an unpredictable siege could turn glut into scarcity overnight. Tucked within its stone embrace, the armory was the nerve center of castle defense, holding a wealth of weaponry forged by skilled hands. Longbows, swords, and crossbows, each piece a testament to martial readiness, lay in wait. Drums echoed through the halls as soldiers hastily prepared, eyes steady and hands sure. This wasn't merely a store of arms, it was the soul of resistance, transforming ordinary men into warriors of folklore. As the gates creaked under siege, skilled hands worked tirelessly within, ensuring that each soldier could stand against the tide. Silent corridors wound through the castle's depths, secret passages that turned the fortress into a treacherous labyrinth for foes. These covert routes offered more than escape. They were spies' pathways and ambush routes, allowing defenders to slip out, unseen, and sow chaos among the besieging forces. Behind hidden panels and beneath stairways, these passages were silent conspirators in a deadly game, always whispering tales of cunning and survival. In the midst of conflict, even the castle's quiet courtyards could suddenly become battlefields, their tranquil surfaces shattered by the din of war. Spaces meant for drilling and exercise among soldiers now teemed with barricades and armed defenders. Familiar stomping grounds were now churning arenas, battlegrounds layered in violence and strategy. Here, soldiers not only remembered their drills, but also found refuge in known corners. Each stone, a familiar presence. Each shadow, a hiding place. These mighty stones sheltered a microcosm, quite like a bustling town. Blacksmiths fashioned weapons vital for defense, while courtyard markets buzzed with life, supplying essentials and comforts alike to withstand long sieges. Chapels resonated with hymns beseeching divine protection, while bustling markets painted a vivid picture of vibrant life within these stone walls. Throughout, the laughter and games of children knitted community bonds, strengthening the human fabric that held the castle together. At the core of this intricate web was leadership, The castellans stood as the keystone of the fortress, their calm command in crisis shaping the fates of men inside. Their decisions on the command post determined the resilience of the entire fortress. They managed provisions, delivered stirring speeches, reminding the garrison of their duty, while religious ceremonies secured hope among fearful hearts. Leadership was more than a single mind. It was a current imbued with morale that animated the very stones and mortar, spurring defiant courage against impossible odds. As our journey through these medieval strongholds winds to a close, what remains is the echo of humanity's indelible spirit etched within their walls. These castles were dynamic testimonies, breathing contrast to the world outside, spurring imagination into overdrive. Ruins, though they are now shadows against time's relentless passage, they remain legends, whispering timeless stories of human grit and defiance. Today, they remind us of a shared heritage, bridges to an era defined not only by conflict but resilience. Through the echoes of stone corridors, the past comes alive, inviting us to imagine a world lost to time, yet intertwined with our own. In the shadowy corridors of history, the walls of medieval castles revealed themselves as potent weapons in a realm where strength and cunning ruled the day. More than simple stone barriers, these curtain walls represented the pinnacle of military engineering, standing thick and imposing against the backdrop of medieval life. With surfaces artfully sloped to shrug off the force of battering rams and incoming projectiles, these walls were not just obstacles, but integral to the defense, hiding secret walkways and passages for quick, unseen movement of defenders along the ramparts. These formidable curtains served as much more than mere fortifications. They were platforms of death. Defenders atop the parapets delivered arrow after arrow upon the invaders below, well guarded by the crenellated battlements. If any daring adversaries breached this first line, an inner wall lay prepared to challenge them anew, transforming the outer perimeter into a deadly gauntlet, buying time for defenders to regroup. It was an elegant dance of survival where every stone played its part in the theater of siege warfare, echoing the times when opportunity was as deadly as any sword or spear. Castles carried a signature feature that offered defenders an unparalleled edge: the arrow slit. Slim and strategically angled, these slits allowed archers to rain arrows upon their foes with limited exposure to return fire. They provided a broad field of fire, turning every step the attackers took into a perilous gamble. These narrow openings often took on a cross shape to accommodate crossbows, providing ample room for reloading while maintaining relentless pressure on advancing forces. Enemies approaching were greeted by gleaming steel seen through these narrow portals, each a window into the promise of a swift, silent death. Adding to the calculated ferocity of castle defenses were murder holes, hidden threats lurking above gateways and passageways. Designed for surprise, these openings allowed defenders to unleash cascades of stones, boiling oil, or scalding water upon unsuspecting foes. The visceral chaos sown by such measures was as psychological as it was physical, where every step onto castle grounds might become a test of fate. Imagining an invader, armor steaming under hot oil or struck by unseen stone, demonstrates the sheer power these defenders wielded through elemental fury and surprise. Not merely decorative, the battlements, with their merlins and crenels, embodied a delicate balance of offense and defense. Defenders could fire arrows through the gaps and seek cover behind the solid parts, an intricate dance between visibility and protection. This ingenious design allowed defenders to engage attackers with strategic precision, striking fear into the hearts of those below. The battlements stood like solemn guardians, turning the simple act of climbing a ladder into the last decision many attackers would ever make. The castle's embrasures were deadly complements to its other defenses, designed to provide the finest vantage for archers or the early users of firearms. These intricately constructed openings allowed defenders to sow chaos upon their attackers from within, their positions unseen and their intentions obscured by shadow. As arrows, bolts, and eventually gunpowder-borne projectiles sliced through the air, the attackers below scrambled for cover, thwarted by the calculated lethality that these openings represented. The defenders could adapt and change with the tide of battle, commanding the field through strategic advantage and unexpected challenges. At the heart of every castle's defense lay the gatehouse, a symbol of both invitation and deterrence. These formidable structures house drawbridges, portcullises, and iron-reinforced doors, turning entry points into bottlenecks of mayhem, where combat was inevitable and close. Approaching a castle often meant enduring the psychological game of crossing the bridge, hearing the portcullis crash down, and realizing the stone had swallowed you whole. Here, stone met steel, and dreams of conquest faced grim reality. A well-prepared garrison defending to the last breath. With history on their side, towers served as both watchful sentinels and steadfast defenders, offering a high ground advantage crucial in medieval combat. These lofty constructs enabled broader surveillance of the surrounding area, providing early warnings of advancing threats, and from these heights, strategic strikes could rain upon enemies, making every angle of the castle a fortress within a fortress. Whether through archery bombardments or by unleashing stone and oil on climbers, towers ensured that any approach was fraught with peril, securing their place as linchpins in siege defense. The psychological battle waged by these walls extended beyond their physical might. A looming castle, with its array of defenses, painted illusions of invincibility. Every murder hole, every drop of oil was more than defense. It was a weapon designed to break the invader's spirit. The sight of towering walls and the shadows of distant towers projected dominance, turning attackers' courage into whispers of doubt before they ever reached the stone. The evolution of castle defenses bore witness to the rapid advances in siege technology. As trebuchets and ballistae threatened, castles adapted with designs that absorbed their might, curving walls to minimize penetration and incorporating buttresses for reinforcement. This seamless blend of ancient strategy and new innovation ensured defenders had the upper hand, transforming each fortress into a living testament to security, crafted by necessity and honed by time. Even today, the walls of these once mighty castles speak of resilience and a relentless pursuit of dominance. As we wander their ruins, their silent stories whisper the timeless tales of human ingenuity, reminding us of an era where every stone was laid with purpose and every wall held firm against a torrent of history. In the Middle Ages, the image of a moat surrounding a castle might evoke a serene picture of water and reflection, but reality was often far from idyllic. These moats were not always filled with water. Many were dry and cunningly laid out with treacherous mixtures of mud, rocks, and concealed spikes, turning the advance of besieging troops into a chaotic nightmare. Moats served as the initial barricade, a grim prelude that discouraged even the most valiant knights from venturing into a mire teeming with hazards and covered by arrows. When water was added to the equation, sometimes by ingeniously linking moats to nearby rivers, the moat became not just a physical obstacle, but a calculated act of psychological warfare, signaling to attackers the formidable defenses lying ahead. Across these moats, the drawbridge stood as a feat of medieval engineering, an emblem of both welcome and denial. Crafted from robust timber and sheathed with iron, it was designed to pivot swiftly between states of openness and fierce closure, transforming paths of easy access into formidable barriers in seconds. The sound of a drawbridge slamming shut was more than mere noise. It was a definitive signal of severance, declaring that no negotiation would breach the castle's defenses. This specter of sudden closure forced attackers to rethink their strategies, contemplating whether to risk an advance upon potentially hazardous planks or search for other routes into the fortress. Beyond the moat and bridge lay the portcullis, an iron barrier eagerly waiting to ensnare the unwary. Heavy, gridded structures supported by wood and reinforced with iron, portcullises could descend with deadly speed. Positioned to administer immediate reprisal in a long-standing barrier, they were often the last sight for attackers too slow to retreat, left stranded under tons of iron, a grim testament to their futility. While a portcullis offered defenders a sense of assured security, it cast a heavy psychological shadow over attackers, marking a point where hard-won progress came to a halt in a death trap. But for those navigating past these layers, the castle's sinister innovations were not yet exhausted. Above gates and along narrow corridors, murder holes awaited, allowing defenders to unleash relentless rains of boiling oil, pitch, and stones upon the heads of unwelcome guests. These cruelly effective surprises were complemented by the silent menace of arrow slits, slender openings allowing archers to target invaders with precision while keeping themselves protectively concealed. These deceptive simplicities spoke volumes, infusing each step of the attacker with dread and uncertain anticipation about the threat yet unseen. As for the gate itself, despite its appearance of impregnable fortification with iron-banded oak and imposing facade, it marked the castle's Achilles heel, a necessary point of vulnerability. Assaults on the gate were fraught with peril. Intentional defenses like murder holes, redundant portcullises, and layered barricades lengthened the path, contesting attackers with destructive welcome long before they breached the gate. For defenders, the gate was not just a physical structure, but a strategic heartbeat. Its steadfastness either inspiring renewed defense or signaling perilous advance for their foes. These formidable architectural elements transcended mere static defense, influencing the very tactics of warfare. Siege warfare morphed into its own niche of warcraft as attackers devised elaborate countermeasures against these defenses. Generals found themselves re-evaluating direct assaults, opting instead for protracted blockades and psychological maneuvers as the sight of the castle looming ahead challenged their strategic resolve. For defenders, these elements became symbols of unity, training their forces not only to resist tangible sieges, but to anticipate and react to evolving threats. At the castle's gates, before crossing their adversary's threshold, attackers faced a test of wit and morale long before they tested their skill. The lines of defense, from moat and drawbridge to the fortified doors, became more than just physical hurdles meant to diminish attackers' spirits. Defenders exploited these specters with psychological warfare, displaying gruesome warnings and executing mock movements to seed doubt and fear, forcing attackers to question each step and each shadow upon the wall. Even within the chaos and clamor of medieval battle resonated a drive for ingenuity and invention. Medieval architects displayed creativity with angled walls, diverting projectiles, and clever designs such as sallyports enabled counteroffensives. These testaments to human ingenuity rendered castles not mere stone skeletons, but sites of monumental defensive potential. The journey toward these imposing gates was both a testament to courage and an exploration into survival under duress. Each advancing footstep for soldiers and engineers across these death-trapped expanses tested everything from morale to sheer force of will. Those moments of success forged legends of valor, with gates breached or standing, becoming symbols of power shift. Such tales endure as castle gates today stand not simply as relics of bygone eras, but as storied thresholds whispering timeless tales of ambition, conflict, and the relentless ingenuity born from the desire to defend. A medieval castle, with its towering stone walls and shadowed corridors, was a fortress of clandestine calamities, with defense as much about psychological attrition as it was about physical resistance. Breaching the outer defenses was no golden ticket to victory. It merely marked the start of an intricate dance through death's labyrinth. Invaders slipping through the stout curtain walls and surviving the squalid moat found themselves ensnared within an inner maze. Each passageway, a lethal snare artfully crafted by tacticians who understood the sinister artistry of medieval military architecture. As these intrepid souls wound their way inward, narrow corridors acted as bottlenecks where defenders struck with lethal precision. These constricting confines nullified the advantage of numbers, allowing a few adept defenders to fend off throngs of disoriented foes. Ceilings hung low and air oppressive, suffocating the clamor of battle, while attackers, wedged arm to arm, struggled to heft their weapons. The labyrinth transcended mere structure, becoming a living, breathing adversary, mounting a mental assault on those already besieged by injurious architecture. Among this menagerie of deadly designs, the spiral staircase stood out for its cunning craft. Almost invariably constructed to ascend clockwise, these stairs favored right-handed defenders, granting them a battle edge as they descended. Attackers, such as knights in gleaming armor or the less refined mercenaries, found their sword arms impeded by design, a right arm throttled by the interior curve. Defenders basked in the open arc, slicing and dicing in elegant strokes made more brutal by the nearness of oblivion. Even the layout of these sinister stairways paid homage to the enigmatic architects who devised uneven steps, introducing peril to footfalls, unnoticed until bare seconds before their fatal ascent. Each misplaced step transformed unwary combatants into tumbling masses of armor and cries lost in the passage's gloom. The echoes from these stumbles served a dual purpose, reminding attackers of their precarious position in defenders of their home turf supremacy. Meanwhile, the murder hole's icy vestiges of machination allowed overhead assailants to unleash unseen hell upon the combatants below. Through small apertures, defenders rained down boiling oil or quicklime, a burning dust that tore the senses in disarrayed thoughts. These hidden apertures rendered the invaders' journey nothing more than a fiery gauntlet, teeming with unseen hands, ready to trip them into doom. Their grisly precision not only halted advances, but heightened panic, introducing a crippling uncertainty that gnawed at the invaders' resolve long before they glimpsed their challenge. Yet no part of a castle was deemed an unsuitable venue for surprise nor trap, and thus floors and ceilings assumed roles in the theater of combat. Floors conspired to betray the unwillfully weighty foot, offering false surfaces and pitfalls that led to waiting caches below. Meanwhile, ceilings concealed deadly surprises, mechanisms prepared to release stones and havoc from high, demonstrating a grim appreciation for gravity's duty. The assailing force felt their nerves quiver, each fruitful footfall a mystery wrapped in dread, undermined by the omnipresent potential of a dire descent. In traversing these halls, defensive illusion played a quiet hand. Both structure and adornment conspired to deceive and confound. Hidden doors and false corridors doubled the defender's stealth, creating phantoms to lead attackers astray. Strategic furniture placement concealed egresses or facilitated ambuscades, unraveling the attacker's certainty stitch by stitch. Rather than haphazardly scattered, these illusions were threads interwoven into a grander strategy, a masterwork unfurling the sly brilliance of its makers, the unseen hand teasing demise from the undisciplined mind. Even to the besieged soul, panic doors, the humblest of exits, whispered promises of yearning salvation before lunging into a trap's jaws. Constructed to beckon escape, these shrewd partitions masked ruthlessly calculated sequences, hidden linkages guiding attackers unwittingly into ambushes. Their elegance shamed all but the williest of hearts, turning triumph to tragedy, oblivious travelers into stark pillars of teaching on navigating the mindset of siege. Beyond even feigned release, a castle's courtyard beckoned with deceptive openness, akin to a temporary pause where one might breathe freely. This deliberate illusion lent courtyards a foreboding undertone. These spaces served as concealed killing zones, overseen by vigilant marksmen whose deadly projectiles darted from ramparts poised to harbor these arenas in unending battle hymns. Each stone was a testament to the raw, unadulterated contest for supremacy that these courtyards laid bare. Renowned for siege contests, castles relied not solely upon trickery, but on steadfast troops innately familiar with bedrock passage. These specialists wielded polearms and swift blades, trained to navigate and combat with uncompromised poise, uncanny figures who danced through the darkness. Each movement part of a macabre ballet composed from years of devotion. Their presence, above all, lent the castle an aura of timelessness as a bastion of sheer determination. Ultimately, each stone and shadow inside these fortresses unfurled into a grand saga when tested in the siege's crucible, revealing an ingenious amalgam of defense woven by the deft hands of history. As reminders of this era's resolve and vision, these edifices endure, echoing the secrets of forgotten resistances, encouraging modern introspection on fortitude and strategic brilliance. Through these haunted corridors and courtyards, one finds echoes of ages past, stories etched into stone where every step spoke of men's fierce stand against insurmountable odds. Imagine standing on the crenellated battlements of a besieged castle, the cold stone beneath your fingers, a constant reminder of the stakes at hand. In the medieval world, facing siege was a test of endurance as much as warfare, where both attackers and defenders grappled in a deadly contest of patience and resourcefulness. Siege defense was about mastering the delicate art of survival, cultivating a siege mentality that reached far beyond mere endurance. Preparation started long before any enemy appeared on the horizon. Castles weren't just fortresses, they were self-sustaining lifeboats in turbulent seas, The castle itself was strategically nestled for access to fertile lands, dense forests, and a reliable water source. Within thick stone walls, granaries overflowed with dry grains, casks of salted meats, and stockpiles of smoked fish, their pungent aromas saturating the cold air. Hardy vegetables such as turnips and onions stood by like silent sentinels, ensuring the vital sustenance of the community. Even moisture-laden barrels of ale held vigil in the cool depths, patient guardians against spoilage and despair. Amid these stores, hardtack biscuits, a staple of subsistence, lined the shelves like dusty treasures, promising nourishment long after freshness had waned. Beneath the stone and mortar, unseen wells and secret tunnels whispered forgotten tales of cunning over might. Water was the lifeline that could not be severed. Ingenious architects concealed wells within the heart of the castle, protecting them from the prying eyes and sinister wiles of the enemy. Some fortresses even boasted labyrinthine tunnels, stretching like the talons of a great subterranean beast, reaching far toward distant water sources outside the blockades. These hidden veins of sustenance provided more than just liquid life. They granted defenders a psychological edge, sustaining a flickering hope amid the shadows of confinement. Yet no matter how well prepared, starvation was ever the unseen antagonist. Despite the best-laid plans, as days turned to weeks, supplies inevitably dwindled, whispering a grim reminder of siege realities. Rationing became a harsh mistress, demanding fierce discipline and unwavering oversight. The castle steward held the keys to life itself, calculating each portion with unfaltering precision. When the cupboards began to echo with the yawning emptiness of dwindling stores, it was the curator of this lifeboat who must remain resolute in the face of murmurs and unrest. There was, moreover, the spectral dance of trade and diplomacy, potential lifelines amid the siege's grim choreography. Sometimes hostile encounters cooled into tentative truces, whispered deals slipped like notes between barred fingers. Local villagers braved the danger to barter in exchange with their besieged kin, and in rare moments, even the besiegers could be swayed or duped by heartfelt pleading or cunning deceit. The art of negotiation was as vital as any sword or shield, proving that survival was not solely built upon battlements, but fostered in the quiet shadows of diplomacy. Within these fortress walls, life didn't simply pause. It vibrated with a humming routine of daily labor. Each day brought a rhythm, repairing the stone that bore the bruised tattoos of siege machines, maintaining the sharp blades of defense, and ensuring the livestock's survival amid scarcity. The air was full of clamor, the sounds of people weaving life from limited threads of hope. Every hand, combatant or not, contributed to the fabric of this makeshift community, sewing torn garments, tending to the sick, or spinning tales that breathed life into the heavy air. The often unheralded heroes of this struggle, women and children, played an indelible role. Women, their hands stained with the grime of toil, stood shoulder to shoulder with men, weaving resilience into the very fabric of siege life. They bore arms if needed, tended to tasks of espionage, and nursed the injured with steadfast care. Children, though small in stature, carried bundles, fetched supplies, and served as poignant reminders of a future beyond the shadow of these fortress walls. Preservation, that magical handmaiden to survival, came to the fore, employing salt and smoke, honey and fermentation. These ancient, sometimes fragrant, sometimes acrid techniques created both sustenance and camaraderie. Amid the pressures of siege, the meaty aromas of smoked provisions and the sharp tang of pickled vegetables were welcome distractions from the omnipresent tension. Even animals played their part. Livestock provided more than nourishment. They were beacons of normalcy. Beyond their practical roles, dogs and cats provided comforting companionship, vigilant alarms, and effective pest control. They mirrored the human struggle, their presence echoing the determination that pervaded this confined world. And in these dark times, the glow of spiritual fervor burned brightly. Faith was both shield and sword as the chapel became a refuge where souls found solace. Rituals and relics connected the temporal with the divine, strengthening resolve with whispered prayers and collective hymns, each note a defiant stand against encroaching despair. Reflect on tomorrows when the gates are finally thrown open, the siege lifted, Yet the world encountered proves as jarring as any confrontation before. Fields lay desolate, familiar paths vanish into the abyss of conflict's aftermath, and the victory of survival leads to a new saga of rebuilding amidst remnants of chaos. Thus stands the ultimate irony. A world fought so hard to preserve, forever altered, meets those who emerge with stories etched into their very essence. Those who found that true fortitude was never in stone alone, but within the hearts that stood sheltered behind it. In the heart of the medieval battlefield, the siege engines stood as ominous sentinels, harbingers of a new kind of warfare that turned once impregnable castles into mere obstacles to be overcome. Stone walls could no longer guarantee safety, for the trebuchet, towering like a wooden titan, brought both precision and destructive power to the besiegers. These machines were marvels of medieval engineering, leveraging the laws of physics to launch boulders with the explosive force of nature. Each cast was a calculated risk, a moment where stone met stone, and sometimes flesh, in a brutal spectacle of war. The psychological toll on defenders was immense. Imagine the shadow of an approaching projectile, the heart-stopping anticipation of whether it would crash against the walls or sail over to wreak havoc within the courtyard. Defenders watched in dread as these monstrous engines slowly approached, towering and relentless. The tension was palpable, like the tightening of a drawstring just before release. Close by, the siege towers loomed, massive moving fortresses covered in dampened hides to resist flames. These monstrous constructions were designed to breach the high walls, serving as mobile platforms from which attackers could launch their assault directly into the heart of the fortress. Day by day, they crept closer, pulled by teams of men, their inexorable advance a psychological game that wore down defenders as much as any projectile might. The defenders, however, were not without their own tricks and plans. They attempted everything from igniting these wooden giants with flammable concoctions to dragging them away with grappling hooks, fearing the moment enemy soldiers would pour onto their battlements. Below, the relentless beat of battering rams reverberated through the stone, an insistent drum heralding the impending breach. Their iron-tipped heads hammered incessantly at gates and walls, protected by shed-like coverings known as ram houses. The steady thuds echoed in the ears of those within, a constant reminder of the peril pressing at their gates. To combat this, defenders had thick crossbars placed to fortify doors further, while some perched above poured boiling liquids onto the attackers. Yet while these engines of war dominated the battlefield, the simpler devices, catapults, and ballistae held their ground too. Born from ancient ingenuity but refined through medieval necessity, these tools relied on tension and torsion to project stones and bolts across long distances. Ballistae pierced both armor and morale, while the catapults were the bread and butter of urgent siege response, quick to assemble and deadly in force. They were the ancestral threads in the tapestry of war, weaving a connection from past to present. Desperation birthed invention in the besieged. Ingenious defenders adapted, creating their own versions of trebuchets and mangonels in a bid to turn the tide. Their creativity didn't stop there. Psychological and guerrilla tactics became vital. Night raids to burn enemy equipment sowed chaos and disorder, leaving attackers vulnerable upon waking to smoldering ruins where their engines once stood. Amidst the clamor and clang of warfare, sabotage emerged as the undercover hero. Silent and deadly, it took a different kind of courage to dismantle a siege engine from within the enemy's camp, risking all in a nocturnal dance of destruction. This weave of shadow and steel was a reminder to besiegers that the true threat might come from unseen hands, turning the aggressor's weaponry against them. Beyond the tangibles of wood and rope, the mine was another battlefield. The presence of siege engines served not just as physical threats, but as symbols of looming conquest, their very existence enough to undermine morale. Defenders responded with cunning displays aimed at convincing attackers of their resilience and indomitable spirit. Illusions of abundance and invisible barricades became mind games that made reprieve seem an elusive dream to the attackers. Yet it was the oft-forgotten engineers, the master craftsmen behind these colossal engines, who were the unsung scribes of destruction. They translated concepts into reality, mapping a single stone's arc with mathematical precision. They were the human pulse behind the machines, forever altering the calculus of conflict with each innovation and contraption. By diverting from traditional methods, they changed warfare's trajectory, crafting artifacts of such complexity that their echoes reverberated through the annals of history. As time trudged onward, siege engines gave way to newer technologies, their wooden frames silenced by progress. Yet they endure in legends and ruins, whispered of in manuscripts and sung of in ballads. They are reminders of a time when human ingenuity was forged in the crucible of conflict and castles stood as the last bastions of endurance against impossible odds. As much as they shaped the medieval landscape and its defenses, they continue to captivate our imaginations, timeless in their testament to human creativity and resilience in the ancient struggle for survival. In the eerie echo of medieval battlements, siege warfare was not solely a contest of strength and steel. Instead, cunning and deceit often reigned supreme, with defenders orchestrating intricate ruses to overturn the tide of battle. Within the fortress walls, shadowy corridors and hidden chambers sheltered the birth of elaborate schemes designed to baffle and outmaneuver adversaries. A clever trick might turn a perceived shortage of supplies into a deceptive display, allowing attackers to miscalculate the defender's endurance. Or secret messages and signals might simulate incoming reinforcements, leaving besiegers chasing ghosts across the countryside. As the endless days of a siege dragged on, deception gnawed at the enemy's morale. Sometimes feigning surrender was a dangerous gamble, luring attackers into well-laid traps. The art of deceit lay in the subtlety of action, in the mastery of concealment as much as the reveal. Vulnerable sections of a fortification might suddenly bristle with boiling oil or spring an ambush, a constant mind game, leaving attackers second-guessing their every move. Thus, the mind was as valuable as the sword, and surprise became its secret weapon. Crafting traps was an art unto itself, transforming the castle into an enigmatic beast, ready to ensnare unwary intruders. Ingeniously designed, these hidden mechanisms, collapsible bridges plunging foes into sludge pits, or camouflage stakes waiting beneath unsuspecting feet, struck with stealthy savagery. True mastery involved creating devices that haunted the besieger's psyche with ever-present reminders of their vulnerability, sowing paranoia in even the boldest heart. As soldiers advanced with weary steps, eyes glued to the shifting ground beneath their feet, their attention was devoured by unseen threats, a testament to human creativity, where minds devised terrors bodies could only dread. In the theater of siege warfare, innovative defenders exploited the enemy's arsenal, turning captured siege weapons against their original owners. Trebuchets and battering rams, remade under the cloak of night by daring raids, reversed the balance of power, wreaking havoc as attackers reeled from thunderous surprises. This was more than just physical destruction. It was a blow to morale, a bitter reminder that with cleverness, adversaries could weaponize the enemy's might against them. Amidst these martial maneuvers, the specter of disease lurked, a grim ally in the defender's toolkit. Plague and pestilence ran through armies more ruthlessly than any blade, and occasionally corpses and entrails, rife with contagion, were flung over the siege lines in gruesome biological warfare. This tactic, riddled with ethical dilemmas, wielded devastating impact, eroding enemy willpower and turning each soldier into a potential carrier of their doom. Yet this high-stakes strategy balanced at perilous thresholds, ever on the brink of spilling back upon its originators. Superstition, profound in the medieval psyche, was deftly manipulated by defenders who conjured dread through tales of spectral guardians and enchanted fortification. By planting whispers of ghostly protectors or staging supernatural displays with manipulated lights and eerie sounds, defenders preyed on the besiegers' belief in magic and divine intervention. When night fell and imaginations ran unchecked, an ill-timed thunderstorm could seem a celestial signal, and an eclipse, a harbinger of doom, intensifying the beleaguered state of mind among the attackers. Meanwhile, defenders cultivated the illusion of prosperity, projecting an aura of abundance that mocked the besiegers' efforts to starve them. Slaughtered livestock and stockpiled grain were paraded with nonchalance, coaxing doubt into the hearts of the enemy. At times, emissaries were invited inside, allowed to glimpse the exaggerated spectacle of plenty, which they would dutifully relay, stirring unease and uncertainty among their ranks. In parallel to these brazen acts, misinformation served as a subtle yet insidious weapon. Falsehoods deftly woven into enemy ranks sowed seeds of suspicion and discord, often disseminated through intercepted letters or muttered rumors by spies embedded within. Such deceit required astute political acumen to exploit the fragile alliances binding desperate armies of mercenaries and coerced conscripts, encouraging internal rifts to surface and weakening the besiegers' unity, achieving through whispered lies what iron and stone could not. Amidst this nerve-wracking atmosphere, the sound of war became another tool of manipulation. Battle cries amplified by stone walls multiplied into an illusion of force, and drums, horns, and spectral wails peppered the night, warping reality and emotion as effectively as any weapon. Defenders and attackers alike danced to this sonic score, rallying behind or recoiling from its chilling notes. Espionage underscored these tactics, with spies precariously balancing between betrayal and revelation, gleaning insight into enemy strategies while sowing plans of disarray. As information, true and false, flowed through the shadows, its potency rivaled that of knights and kingmakers. In these desperate strategies, the human spirit thrived on adaptability and deception. Siege warfare became neither solely about physical might nor the walls and battering rams, but about the mental labyrinths navigated by both defender and attacker. The medieval siege was a testament to humanity's unyielding ability to turn desperation into an opportunity for survival, where minds waged wars of subtlety, bending fate to their favor through the shrewd dance of survival and wit. In the throes of a medieval siege, the fate of a castle often rested on the shoulders of its leader. This individual, whether a castellan or a lord, was not just a figure of authority, but the very heart of the fortress. Every decision, every strategy could mean the difference between survival and obliteration. From the high towers to the shadowed chambers, their role was to manage the balance of immediate defense needs and the prolonged endurance of those within the walls. Unlike the warriors in gleaming armor, these leaders relied on the sharper tools of wit and strategy. History is dotted with tales of leaders who faced this harsh crucible. Some lost themselves to panic amid relentless attacks, yet others, with unwavering resolve, transformed stone into legend. Their leadership extended far beyond tactics as they had to kindle hope among the weary, urging tired defenders to rise once more, turning them into lions, ready to protect every last cobblestone. It was a mental battle just as fierce as the one waged at the walls, where their command truly shone. Central to survival during a siege was the art of rationing. The mightiest castle couldn't conjure provisions from thin air. Therefore, the leader had to carefully gauge supplies, ensuring enough to keep spirits high and strength intact. Every grain, each drop of water was precious. Days stretched into weeks, and the threat of hunger loomed just as ominously as enemy forces. Resourceful leaders devised ways to make the most of what they had. Grain hoarded in peaceful times became a lifeline. Hidden herbs turned into medicinal saviors, while damaged rooftops yielded lead for projectiles. Rainstorms, although infrequent, filled barrels, turning fleeting water into repositories of hope. The leader needed to dance adeptly, balancing economics with empathy, foresight with innovation. Such ingenuity, that delicate alchemy of resources, often determined whether a castle could withstand incessant battering or if it would fall from within. Maintaining discipline was the backbone of any defense. Men shoulder to shoulder had to hold firm against doubt and fear. It was the leader's task to forge their camaraderie into an impenetrable armor. Strict routines and a clear chain of command kept chaos at bay. Orders had to be absolute. Any flicker of dissent could shatter morale overnight. Yet discipline was no mere iron-fisted rule. Leaders also knew the value of empathy, listening to grievances, celebrating acts of bravery, and bearing shared hardships strengthened bonds. It was a formula of strictness and nurturing, building a singular force ready to withstand the siege's grind. This wasn't just about preventing chaos, but instilling an enduring purpose. The air during a siege was thick with dread, a silent enemy creeping through stone. The leader's challenge was steering their people through this abyss. Amidst the clamor, They projected assurance, defying doom with calculated speeches and visible resolve. Tales of past victories framed as noble battles offered solace. A keen leader also knew the power of acknowledging fears and soothing them. Humor, like a sharp blade, cut through anxiety, drawing laughter and relief from futility. Displaying leadership during tense moments was as critical as sharing quiet words in dim candlelight. By channeling camaraderie-filled resolve, they forged a bastion against panic, a fortress of spirit just as significant as stone. Communication was a vital thread, weaving through the vast defense tapestry. Commands and reassurances flowed through corridors, over fields, reaching every corner of the fortress. In a world lacking instant communication, the clarity and timing of words held immense power. A well-placed phrase could rally action, while an ill-considered one might bring chaos. Messengers risked crossing enemy lines with coded messages, ensuring the castle remained in step. Beyond walls, the dialogue continued. Diplomacy and negotiation crept silently, offering lifelines, engaging potential allies, sending emissaries to nearby villages, and probing the intentions of foes proved crucial. Words crafted connections, paving roads for alliances. Effective communication wasn't a mere adornment, but a crucial fabric, joining efforts and fostering a collective aim amid pervasive uncertainty. Knowledge was power. Leaders understood this and prioritized gathering intelligence. Knowing the enemy's strength and intentions informed decisions. Scouts and observation posts worked tirelessly, piecing together scattered information. Every rumor, every whisper contributed to a bigger picture, a complex chess game played between enemy moves and hidden strengths. Leadership during a siege was a crucible for resolve. Sieges tested spirit and body, wearing down willpower. Fear, exhaustion, and despair were ever-present foes. Leaders enduring these trials became beacons for their defenders. Even those histories record as faltering left lessons in humility and resolve. Leadership was beyond regal crowns or knight's armor. It was an invisible force driving defenders past insurmountable barriers. The destruction, death, and darkness of sieges leave enduring marks. The walls may crumble, but the legacies of wise leaders persist. Castellans who led with courage crafted paths for future histories. Triumph or defeat, their actions shaped legends. While the victorious soared like eagles, the fallen left lingering questions for later generations. In essence, leadership during a siege forged a timeless monument, a tale of valor, sacrifice, and flawed perseverance that continues to inspire curiosity and respect. In the dim glow of a castle's dying fire, surrender often loomed like a heavy shadow. Opening the gates to besiegers was a leap into uncertain fate, where the promise of mercy could easily be snuffed out by the rage of war. Negotiations, though traditionally a part of siege warfare, were frequently hollow. Deciding to yield was more than a choice. It was a gamble with survival at stake, for the harsh reality was that surrender offered no guarantee of life. Chronicles tell of garrisons promised safety, butchered without mercy, their bodies left as grim warnings. Surrendering might mean enslavement or worse as the defeated fell to the fickle whims of their conquerors, where compassion was as rare as a gentle summer rain in a brutal time marked by power and revenge. Yet when surrender was not an option, some defenders chose to scorch their own strongholds. Setting the castle aflame was an act of sheer defiance, sending a clear message that the victor would claim nothing but cinders and echoes. Castles were more than bastions. They brimmed with resources, treasures, a life's worth of possessions turned to smoke and ash. The decision to torch one's home was driven by a fierce resolve to deny the enemy their spoils, leaving only barren ruins. Such flames were more than destruction. They embodied a desperate pride, a will unyielding even in the face of doom. Chroniclers paint vivid scenes of blazing battlements and smoke-choked skies, a testament to irrevocable defiance turning these final acts into legends. In the thick of battle, some defenders chose to stand until their last breath, seeing death as preferable to the disgrace of submission. For these souls, valor was the lone currency, deeply ingrained into their very fabric. Their stories, though rare, left indelible marks on history as fierce expressions of the human spirit. Clad in mail or mere rags, defenders fought with a fire in their hearts, often stronger than the flames devouring their walls. Chronicles and songs speak of these warriors who turned every stone and every inch of ground into a testament of their resolve, becoming timeless figures of resistance, silhouetted against a crumbling world. Amid such tales, the siege led by Saint Joan of Arc stands prominently, intertwining myth and martyrdom. Defending Orléans against English forces, though not a conventional siege, epitomizes improbable resistance. Joan embodied defiant resilience and spiritual conviction, transforming city defenders into a steadfast force. Though her life and deeds are clouded with legend, historical accounts magnify her impact, revealing a leader whose faith lit a path even through the darkest prospects. Her tragic end, burned as a heretic, only deepened her legacy, marking her as a symbol of unyielding courage and resistance. When faced with overpowering odds, medieval defenders didn't just fight, they adapted. They transformed castle walls into guerrilla battlefields, turning every narrow passage and hidden chamber into a cunning trap. Familiarity with these stone mazes allowed defenders to strike stealthily, vanishing like shadows through secret paths, leaving their foes bewildered. By embracing their environment's nuances, defenders managed to hold the unbeatable at bay, with every strategic nook and unsuspected ambush leveling the playing field. Patience and cunning bought time and imposed a psychological edge over mightier forces, confounding them with a foe as elusive as the wind. However, real battles raged beyond the clash of steel. Psychological warfare was an art vital to the defender's toolkit. Fear proved an effective ally, chipping away at the invading soldiers' spirits. Rumors of hauntings and whispers of curses echoed through the halls, playing on the attackers' minds. Eerie lights flickering in the night, unearthly howls born from human voices. These were tricks crafted not of magic, but fear. Castles became daunting fortresses where even darkness took up arms, weaving tales of supernatural defenders more commanding than force alone could ever muster. Medieval chronicles are rich with these tales, mixing truth with folklore, enshrining ordinary people into legends. Knights facing overwhelming odds only to fall became emblematic of bravery beyond mere survival. These stories traveled far, retold by firelight, taking root in the hearts of those seeking courage. Beyond entertainment, they imparted lessons of valiant defiance, lifting spirits in dire times. Even as ruins stand witness to the past, the enduring ones who guarded them etched themselves into memory as beacons of inspiration, promising through their tales that stone and spirit alike might crumble yet endure. Behind castle ruins lay silent testimonies of courage, unyielding spaces haunted by the ghosts of defiance. Each cracked stone bore witness to past valor, marked by stories beyond mortal grasp. These hallowed grounds where spirits seemed to linger became places of reflection for those wishing to connect with forgotten heroics. Within, tales of spectral figures and haunted knights echoed the enduring essence of courage long after human actors had departed. The legacy of a last stand is more than history. It becomes a motif echoing timelessly, binding cultural identity and collective imagination. Heroes remembered, their virtues and sacrifices nurtured by ballad and tale, never fade. Though castles rise and fall, the spirit of defiance in their walls outlasts time. These stories illustrate humanity's undying resilience, its refusal to bow to extinction, leaving behind a truth. Victory is fleeting, but while ruins and stories remain, so too does hope. In those tales, the power of resilience speaks across ages, teaching lessons of courage and will. They capture testimonies to survival, identity, and freedom, shining light on the human capability to withstand despair. These whispered stories, held firm by time, remind us that in the face of annihilation, people can choose to stand firm. As we sift through the ruins, we find the enduring heart of defiance still beating, the pulse of a defender unwavering through the ages. The enduring stories of castles that withstood great sieges live on, not just as dusty tales from history, but as the beating heart of human resilience and creativity. Consider Island Donan Castle, echoing with song and determination as it faced its attackers in the 14th century. These castles were much more than mere fortresses of stone. They were emblems of human tenacity where defenders merged with walls to craft a story of survival against the tide. In every corner of a victorious castle, a silent narrative thrives. Children years later sitting raptured by the hearth, dreaming of ancestors who fought bravely against adversity. Each victorious stronghold nurtured a region's identity, celebrating the valor that became the very fabric of stories passed down through generations. Yet every tale of triumph cast a shadow on those lost to history. Chateau Gaillard, once an indomitable fortress, stands as a testament to the fleeting nature of power. Its fall at the hands of King Philip II of France in 1204 sent ripples through its lands, where steadfast courtyards became nothing more than haunted spaces inhabited by memories of those who gave their last breath. The repercussions of such a defeat extended beyond lifeless stones. They cut through the lives of villagers left vulnerable, constantly revised maps and power dynamics, and colored their skies with uncertainty, perpetually haunted. Such losses leave behind more than just ruins. In these places, stones bear the weight of forgotten heroes and whispered legacies. Knights once garnished songs, but for every hero remembered, countless more have vanished into obscurity. Children, peasants, forgotten souls. These everyday warriors also claimed quiet victories, kept alive only by the winds that awaken ghosts within the ruins. Their stories persist, partly told in the crumbling architecture that still resembles their courage, urging us not to overlook their silent sacrifices amid grand narratives. A walk among these ruins invites discovery. They are archives of human perseverance, whispered through time under blankets of ivy and moss. Modern explorers uncover relics, artifacts that paint vivid pictures of life during sieges. The strategy, the human suffering, the raw reality of living beneath constant threat. Restoration efforts strive to resurrect these stories, drawing modern eyes back to strife eras through immersive experiences that revive midnight sieges and echo battles from past centuries. People tread paths once walked by heroes, unraveling mysteries of time among stones that refuse to forget. The mythology of castles blurs lines between history and creativity, weaving threads into a grand medieval tapestry. Our understanding of fortress life dances between half-truth and fable, a dizzying interplay of reality and romanticism. Though triumphs of logic and bravery built them, myths have carved stronger stones in memory's annals. Like the legendary collapse of Troy, castles and the knights who defended them shine not merely because of what empirically happened, but because they enchant us with deeper symbolism and cultural resonance. Today's world still pulses with the legacies left by castle architects and their imposing designs. Spiraled staircases, archery slits, engineering marvels outlast military needs. Finding new life in urban planning and modern defenses, tidings from history's wellspring. Not just in design, but castles are reborn in cultural reinterpretations, motifs that rise in films, literature, and theme park enchantments. They remind us of ages gone in stone reborn, spaces filled with ambition, heartbreak, and humanity's timeless struggles, coaxing modern hearts into these ancient tales. But while castles endure in structure, their true dominion was often carried more by reputation than rock. The walls of the Tower of London loomed larger in the mind than they ever did in height, wielding power not solely in stone, but in tales of dread and authority that carried sway like an unseen force. A masterful chess game where illusion trumped siege. These fortresses taught lessons in reputational prowess that remain ever relevant. Amid the eroding remnants, one finds deeper truths hinted at through shadows. They silently declare the impermanence of power, speak of captains and lords whose dreams envisioned eternal reign, and remind us that while stone is strong, the earth reclaims all in time. Amid these evocative ruins, civilization's past errors stand etched like cautionary tales into the landscape, resonating across our present-day consciousness, vivid reminders of history's indelible cycles. Literature breathes magical realism into these stone giants, whether through Guinevere and Lancelot's courtship under Camelot's towers, or the shadowed intrigue of Elsinore. In tales that play on history's stages, castles emerge as crucial characters, weaving rich textures of human drama and inviting us to lose ourselves within their maze-like histories. In closing, the silent stones seek our attention not from power remembered, but from the promises they etched into humanity's heart. Each whispered secret, each echo in stony halls calls to us, to storytellers and historians alike, to curiously, passionately unbolt doors forever closed. As caretakers of these ancient stories, let us keep listening, for within these stones lies a universal narrative that spans time and insists not on simple understanding, but on a profound recognition that casts light on our perpetual journey through history. And if these tales resonate, dear viewer, do subscribe and share, helping spread the whispers of history far and wide.